Welcome to the Turning Lemons into Lemonade podcast. Each week, your host, Amy Mewborn, business strategist and advisor, will bring you the stories of how successful women entrepreneurs turn their tragedies into triumphs to create the businesses that are changing the world today. And now, your host, Amy Mewborn.
Laura Sprinkle is a passionate entrepreneur who knew she wanted to be self-employed when she first started traveling after college. She knew that she was not cut out for the corporate world and would work harder than everyone else to be able to build a life and business that supported her goals. Today, Laura is a fabulous launch strategist who has been involved in 6- and 7-figure launches. In this episode, she's going to pull back the curtain on some of the misconceptions of launching and running a successful online business. Welcome, Laura Sprinkle. It is so fun to chat with you, and I know you have a lot going on in your business and life right now. So thank you for making time for us. Tell us a little bit about your business and how you got started.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you all today. So my business has definitely evolved a lot, as I can imagine that many people's have. And I didn't start out in life necessarily, graduating wanting to be an entrepreneur, but I knew that I never wanted to sit in a cubicle and the whole 9-to-5 thing just sounded awful. I had done internships and it was ooh, this is not for me. So I was traveling, living in Bolivia. I was teaching, just really doing fellowships, any odd thing sounded appealing to me. Ooh, let me just travel, learn, and all that good stuff. And then I ended up getting really sick with amoebas, which are bacteria, in my gut. And that actually was what kicked off my entrepreneurial journey. Because I had stomach issues for a while because of that, and I could not find answers from the doctors. They would try to give me pills and they would do nothing, and I'd be well, why are you giving this to me? And they would not really have an explanation. So then I started looking into holistic health, and that opened this whole world to me of spirituality and mind-body connection and all this stuff. And I studied to be a health coach, not because I wanted to be a health coach, but because I was oh my God, this is so fascinating.
Love it. That's pretty common for entrepreneurs. We're well, I want to learn that too.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's definitely more about following what interests you and what you're passionate about than oh, I'm going to do this so that eventually I can make money from this thing.
Right.
Or maybe it is, but maybe for some people, that wasn't why I got into it. And then I started, seeing other health coaches really killing it with programs and services and coaching. And so I decided to give it a try. So I tried that for a couple years and it was awesome. But I really found that, I healed my own health stuff. And I found that what I really loved about it was the marketing and putting everything together. So I started helping other people with their businesses, putting their marketing together, specifically for online programs. And then, that has evolved since, and now I'm, doing launch strategy and working behind the scenes for 6- and 7-figure launches.
So one thing that I have learned about you through the last few weeks is you are tremendously organized.
It's a facade.
we're chatting here after Selena Sue's big Impacting Millions launch, and Laura I was so impressed. I know Laura through Basecamp, and I was beyond impressed by how you handled everything. And we all know that in big launches, things don't always go as expected. Sometimes links don't work or any other number of just weird technical things. And you handled everything like a pro. How on earth did you kind of acquire the skills or the patience or whatever to make that such a successful component of your business?
Oh man, how did I acquire? Well, I really think it's oftentimes, and this is true for just about anything in life, I feel like oftentimes we feel like we need to have the skills before we do something. And I remember when the opportunity to work with Selena first came up, like a year and a half ago, is when I first worked with her on a launch. And, they were like asking for all of these different requirements. And then I was kind of hesitant because I'm like, okay, like I know I can do this. I know I can do that piece. That piece sounds fun, but this piece I'm definitely going to have to learn. Like, I don't know this technology. I don't know this. I don't know that. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to apply. I'm just going to put myself out there. And well, that time was a little bit different because it was like smack in the middle of the launch. They needed someone to fill in, and I didn't know the team. I didn't know the technologies. I didn't know, I had never worked on such a big launch before. I worked on big launches, but not like that was, that was the biggest to date. So that was kind of crazy, but really like you learn on the job is really what you got to do. And then this time around with affiliate management, it was really, I don't even know. It was just being willing to show up and do it and say, I don't really know how to do this, but I'm going to try to figure it out. Yeah. And I think part of it is like, I don't know. I don't really like asking for help, which is like a bad thing sometimes, but in some ways it can help me because I'm just like, I'm going to sit here and tinker and just solve this.
Yeah. And good for you. I mean, I think that's especially a challenge for women, that we like to just sit down and figure it out. And so we don't often feel like we should ask other people for help, when really, I think we're a group of people that we thrive when someone does ask us for help. We're just always afraid to ask someone else. And it's just, right. it's a common thing that I hear over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the struggles that you've had in growing your business.
Oof. Yeah. Which ones now? It's definitely it's such a cycle. And this is something that, I know, like Derek Halpern has that like up and down, like meme or whatever about the cycle. But, you think that people that are like, you think that it's sort of this trajectory of like, I'm going to grow, I'm going to grow, I'm going to grow, but that's just not how it works. There's totally ebbs and flows. There's months that I've had negative bank account. There's months that I've been like, woohoo, I'm rolling in the dough. It's like sometimes things click and sometimes they don't. And just because you are 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in business doesn't necessarily mean that everything you do is going to be gold. It's just not how it works. So I feel like one of the struggles is just to realize that and to acknowledge it and plan for it. Like now I would say my finances are much, knock on wood, much more steady, but only because I know like, okay, if I have this super big month, it doesn't mean like, okay, go on a spending spree. It means like, pay myself the same amount as always, and then put that aside for when things aren't necessarily so abundant.
I love that. And it's so important, I think, for any business owner, whether you're new or whether you've been in business a few years, to remember that. Because I know that was one of the first lessons I learned in my first year running the fitness studios. Was August and December were always these months where there was not enough money coming in to make the bills. But January through like April and May were insane. And so you really have to be careful to make sure that, yes, you're paying yourself, but you're also keeping enough in the business to continue your marketing, to continue paying staff. Because like for most of us, if we're really growing in our business, we have a small team underneath helping us too. So, they're kind of counting on us to do what we say we're going to do and to show up and pay them and all that good stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's can be a struggle with people who do launch style businesses or any business, but it sounds really great. Like, oh, I'm going to have a 6-figure launch. I'm going to have a 7-figure launch. Guess what? That's not profit, first of all. And second of all, you can't do that every month.
Sure. Well, it's exhausting. I mean, when I see how much time and effort you guys put into this launch, you were on your computer first thing in the morning. You were on your computer at 11 o'clock at night. It didn't pretty much matter when anyone was emailing or texting. Laura was responding, and she was responding really quickly. And
that was the whole team. It was not just me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, my goodness, I think Selena went, and I mean, she was creating content like this. Every time there was a need, she came out with a new piece of content, and it was amazing. I will tell you, it was probably the best launch I've ever seen in the backstage ever, just because the team as a whole just went all in. Yeah. And, the thing about a launch is you can sprint at that pace for a few weeks. Yeah. But you cannot keep that pace indefinitely. And people don't often realize that in their business, that, there are times where things are going to be a little more quiet, and that's okay. Yeah. And then there are going to be times where there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's just.
Yeah. I love how Todd talks about that. How just like balance is ridiculous. Yeah. It's like sometimes you have to say to your family, listen, I'm in launch mode. And sometimes you have to say to your business, like, listen, I'm going on vacation.
Last week at 90 Day Live, he told us a story about when he was working from home, and Molly, his daughter, came, and she was banging on the door, and she's like, I hate work, because he kept going and locking himself in his office, his home office. And he's like, I'm not doing a very good job integrating them into my work life, so they get to see that that's part of what daddy does, so we can all have the time off that we have. And so what he said is, one of the things that Todd does is writes his handwritten notes every day.
Yep.
And so he said that every morning he would invite Molly in, and they would set out all the stationery and do all the stuff. And she was the person responsible for setting up his workspace. Oh. And I love that, because I think it's such a good way for her to take a little bit of ownership in something and feel like she got to participate, and she was a helper to dad.
Right.
So totally
That's
cool.
Brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, me too. So tell me about the worst day you've had in your business.
So the worst day, the first thing that came to mind when you were asking me that, before it was this one time. I'm coming back to finances a lot, because I think that is something that takes up a lot of brain space and probably everybody's mind, but especially entrepreneurs. Sure. But I do think that there have been different kinds of struggles. But anyway, the worst day of my business was I hadn't had it, it's like sort of like when it rains, it pours. Like all of a sudden, like all the clients were like, okay, we're wrapping up. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do next. And as you've seen, when I'm working on a big project, when I'm with a client, it's really hard for me to maintain even like the marketing side, which I think is like a big struggle of mine also, because I just go all in with my clients.
Client service.
Which is awesome. I love it. They love it. That's fantastic, but it doesn't really lend itself to momentum with other clients necessarily, although this time around it's been a little different. But I've learned some things. But so they were all wrapping up. It had been a couple of months. I wasn't sure what was next. It was like November, so it was like dark because I live in the Northeast, like all that stuff. And I remember I was sitting in the library with my husband, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my part this like coming month. Like, I have no idea how that's going to happen. I had been like embarrassed about my ebb, right? That's an ebb. I'm like, which one's an ebb and which one's a flow?
Yep. Ebb. Yep.
I had been embarrassed about it. So I had really cut myself off from the community. I hadn't been going out because I was like, I don't have money to go out. I don't have money to go get coffee with people. I don't want to tell people that things are not going so well. I cut myself off that way. And so I'm sitting there and I just was like in so much despair. Like, I don't know. Like, I was like, should I apply at Starbucks? Like, I actually did fill out an application at Whole Foods. Like, I wasn't even like thinking big as far as career change. I was like, I don't care, I'm like $10 an hour, like whatever. $10 more than I have right now. And it was really, really sad. And so I sat there, with him, and, he's like, I don't really know what to do either. Like, he has a set salary. So I sat there and I was like, okay, what are a couple of things I can do, right now? Like, what action can I take? And the first thing that came to mind was like, okay, I can text a few people that I know in Portland, Maine, and just say like, hey, I'm looking for a job. Mm-hmm. And even that was like, wow, I'm like admitting that I need help, which we already talked about, I have a struggle with. Admitting that business isn't going so well, because like, why else would I be looking for a job? And all of that. So I got out my phone right there in the library, and I texted, I think four friends, and thinking like, oh, they're probably not going to respond. Like, I've been so uncommunicative. I'm just like asking, and I haven't even, asked them how they are, like anything. But literally right away, I got responses from all of them. And they were just like, yeah, like, what kind of job are you looking for? Like, let me see what I can do. Like, let me talk to a few people. A couple of them were like, let's get together for coffee. And inside I'm like, oh my God, that's opposite the direction that I'm trying to go. It's -$5. But I ended up meeting up with them. And then a couple actually ended up hiring me to work in their businesses. And I did work at Whole Foods for about 3 shifts. I never actually finished my training. And then I got so busy with client work that I had to quit.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
Yeah, it was crazy.
First of all, it's amazing that story is not unique. Mm-hmm. I will say that I've been recording this podcast for about a month, and you are probably the 3rd or 4th person that has said that to me. And I know that in my business, I've had times where I'm like, oh my goodness, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Why on earth did I think I could do this? And it's deathly scary at times,
mm-hmm.
But that's why I think it's so awesome to have a community of other entrepreneurs. And it's one of the reasons I love like the podcast, or I love participating in masterminds and coaching, is that's when you get to see that you are not alone in that mm-hmm. Almost all of us have these ebbs and flows, and that, things may be great today, but tomorrow we may feel about this big, mm-hmm. And so, I love that.
Absolutely. That was literally right before I signed up for a 90-day year, which was another big leap. And I had taken a lot of big leaps before that. Mm-hmm. But it was like, I had started getting clients, and so I signed up, and that led to just so many magical things, and meeting you and meeting all these wonderful people, working with Selena. So, it's like these dark moments, if we can get through them, when we get through them, not if, when we do, there's so much on the other side.
I think it's so important to have that tribe of people, because that tribe, I think on some days, they've literally been the ones that have picked me up when I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so down in the dumps about this or whatever. And it is so nice to have people that genuinely get you and they care.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, you really do need, you need all kinds of support, but you do need entrepreneur friends, because other people who aren't entrepreneurs, like, they don't necessarily understand, sort of these gambles, and not even gambles, but like, we're betting on ourselves often in business, mm-hmm. and it's amazing, but a lot of people are afraid to do that. And so you don't want like any advice that you're given to be tainted with that fear. Yeah. Not that I tell all my entrepreneur friends, like, sure, go like drop whatever amount of money on whatever. But like, I am more encouraging probably than a 9-to-5er would be about like investing in yourself.
Love that. So tell me, what is your secret sauce? What do you do differently or better, or just what do you bring to your business and the business world that you don't think anyone else is doing it the same way?
Oh, wow. That's a question for you. I love it. I think so. A couple of things. One is that I just like, I love making connections between things. So like I can just see how things piece together like a puzzle really well. So a lot of times when people like get into a certain role, or, you know, you're hiring somebody to do graphic design, it's like, I don't know if you've had this, but like they'll do a design and then it's like, okay, but you can't develop this project. Like it doesn't make sense for what we're actually doing here. Or like, you know, you're hired to work on a podcast, and then there's like some random piece of copywriting that needs to happen within the podcast that you like wasn't planned for and you weren't thinking about it. And then it's like, okay, and then there's like whatever. You have to like talk to a bunch of people. So I just love like seeing how things piece together. So like with a team, with affiliates, with a launch, with a business, I really just love like figuring that kind of stuff out. And really like having my hands in all the areas, which can be a good and bad thing. So that is one piece. And then the second is just, I really love learning new stuff. So like I said, I feel like that's been a skill that I've brought that I'm willing to say, yeah, I'll make this website this certain way that I've never done before because I want to learn how to do it. And it's interesting. 'Cause I used to do websites too.
A multi-passionate entrepreneur.
Exactly. Yeah, which that is not unique to me, but yeah, so I like to think that sets it apart a little.
Awesome. Very cool. And tell me, if you were to sit down with a new business owner and you were going to give them some really good advice, teaching, or guidance, what would you teach them, or what would you tell them?
Yeah, a couple of things, which I've already sort of said, but so one, definitely have that tribe of people, and it's going to change. Like I've been in tribes that are more spiritual or more analytical, or, you know, like sometimes that my needs change. And so the tribe changes a little bit, but definitely having a tribe. The other thing is start planning your finances now. Like go read Profit First. That's one of my, I was wondering, that's one of my favorite books. Meanwhile, I've never actually read the book. I have read like the excerpts. I've been all over his website. I've read like every other thing he's written.
Yeah.
Don't actually have the book, but you should go actually get the book. You'll be like 5 steps ahead of me. But go implement what he talks about, even from day one, even when you're like, oh, I made $1. Like I'm going to split this up into percentages. Like, yes, do it.
Love it.
That will help with that ebb and flow that we talked about. And it is true that like finances in business, like they can really play a huge role in like your mood, your creativity, everything. Because when you're stressed, like your customers can feel it, and you'll be pushy and like, ugh, nobody likes that. Yeah. So anyway, from day one, read Profit First, implement that. Tribe, and then just go for it. Really. Like I said, like you're not going to feel ready ever. You're not going to feel ready to get that big client. You're not going to feel ready to launch that program. You're not going to feel ready to raise your prices. You're not going to feel ready to start the podcast, to interview people, to speak on stage. Who am I to do this? Am I really ready? Like, should I practice more? That is another thing that maybe is unique to me, is that I don't practice anything. I just like go for it. So maybe I'll just sprinkle some of that on you, and you can just take that. I should probably practice a little more, and I'll sprinkle the spontaneity on everybody else.
Awesome. So what do you have coming up in your life and your business over the next few months that people should know about?
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit. This is probably coming out after I'm doing this, but I am due with my first baby in about 2.5 weeks, which is really, really exciting. So I'll be taking a few months off, and I just feel really, really blessed that I get to do that, or that I feel like proud of myself that I've set myself up for that, because it did take some work to make happen. But I will be getting back in the thick of it when this launches. So right now I'm in conversations with a few people to work on their launches this fall and winter.
Cool.
And it's funny, but I really don't know apart from that. I do have a program called Launch Rebellion where I help people that are newer to launching, to set up a launch. But, it's kind of on the back burner right now because, like I said, when I get in client mode, I get like really in client mode. So we'll see what happens.
So for our listeners, Launch Rebellion, do you launch that at certain times of the year, like open, close cart, or is that an evergreen? How does that work?
So it has been, I've tried both. And so I did launch it last August, and then I launched it in December. It was evergreen for about a couple of months. And I probably will launch it again this fall. So like right after this is coming out, like definitely check in with me, see if it's something that's happening. I don't want to make any promises. But that's really, really fun. And I love it because every time I update it, it's after I've worked on a launch. Like after this launch with Selena, I'm like, oh my God, I need to go add this to a module and this to a quest. And I need to add this piece of thing that's awesome and this strategy, because that's just how it works. And I'm also really excited because every time I work on a launch, I meet new people that are way smarter than me at certain pieces, and I can bring them in and they can teach different things too.
That is a lesson for all of our listeners, is that when you're going and you're finding a coach or someone that's going to teach you a particular aspect of business, make sure that they're out on the field of play, actually doing that, and they're staying up to date in what's going on in that. Because the thing about launching is someone could have put together a launch program 3 years ago that is completely obsolete and, not going to really get you to where you want to go. So, I think that's a great piece of guidance and advice for someone that's creating an online course, someone that's buying an online course, is make sure that everything is constantly being upgraded and updated to what's actually happening in the marketplace today. Because in the online space, things are moving and changing so fast.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I mean, even like while you're in a launch, I say this to people, this is why, like, I feel like this is why so many first-time launches don't do that well, because they sort of wait and they're like, oh, I'm going to launch next week. And it's like, no, it takes a lot of planning. And the reason that you plan ahead, I'm like getting off on a tangent. This is like, I get really crazy.
This is the gold.
The reason you plan ahead is not so that you can like have an easy breezy launch. I hope for you to have an easy breezy launch. Good luck with that. But it's not necessarily so you can have an easy launch. It's so that you can be in the moment making changes. We changed stuff left and right for this past launch that hopefully the outside world did not see. But it's because we started, Selena started doing this in October, November.
Wow. Yeah.
To launch in March. But because everything was already planned out, so many emails were already written, so many things were already done, we were able to pivot and get new ideas and implement them. But if we were still working on the main launch during launch time, like there's no way that you could implement new ideas. So that is why you plan ahead. It is not so that you have the same level of work or stress or hours. It is so that you can really support your customers in that launch period.
Well, I think especially if you have affiliates and you want your affiliates to succeed during the launch, you guys did such a good job putting together your affiliate package. And then, as things were happening in the launch and frequently asked questions were coming up, there were spontaneous videos and audio and all this stuff that started coming out for Selena to be able to communicate directly with the people that she wanted to communicate with, and that was her potential client. And you have so much more confidence in investing in a program when someone has put in that level of communication and listening and trying to answer your questions. You guys, it blew my mind. It was by far, I've seen a few affiliate launches in the back, and this one was just so well done.
Oh,
so kudos to all of you.
I will pass that along. It is exciting, and it was super, super fun, and it does take a team, which a lot of people also, when they're getting started, look at these huge launches, Marie Forleo, Selena Sue, Todd Herman, I could name a lot, but they look at these huge things and they think that they need to do it the same way. And you can't.
Yeah.
And you don't want to until you have the funds to invest in a launch like this.
Well, and very few people have the team to support a Selena Sue, a Marie Forleo, or a Todd Herman like launch. Yeah. I mean, there's sometimes 8 to 15 people working behind the scenes to make sure that everything's happening. And a lot of times when someone looks at a launch and they're like, well, it was a $2 million launch. Well, that's great, but there still were 8 to 15 people that needed to get paid. There's probably some affiliate commissions and, all those things. And so, yeah, it's just way bigger, I think, than people realize it is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not to say don't strive for that.
No.
But that's not what's going to grow your business at the beginning. So
that's great advice.
Don't do it.
So where can our listeners find you?
They can find me mostly at laurasprinkle.com, if it's updated. It will be. laurasprinkle.com. I also, hang out on Facebook, which I think is just /Laura Sprinkle Community, but I'll give everybody the links.
We'll get all the links in the show notes.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time. Absolute best wishes over your next few weeks. I know you have a lot of amazing life changes.
Yes.
We're super thrilled for you.
Thank you so much, Amy. It was so fun.
Thanks, dear.
Today we talked all things launches and sales funnels. If you'd like our free launch checklist, you can find it in the show notes at lemonadepodcast.com.
Thank you for listening to Turning Lemons into Lemonade, where women go for support and encouragement to hear how other women business owners turn their setbacks into successes to create 6- and 7-figure businesses. We look forward to seeing you next week.